Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. Today's episode is really special. Today we're talking to Alison Alsup, and she is the winner of our adventure grant last year. And if you didn't know, we put that on. It was awesome. We got applicants, and I remember coming across this application and thinking, this is so different. This is so unique. This is exactly what we try to emulate on this show, or try to get people to go do these kinds of experiences. Because Alison basically created something that she wanted to do that was really meaningful to her, and just made it happen. It wasn't necessarily something anyone had ever done before, and it's dubbed the Ohio Project. And what it was, she had just graduated from art school and wanted to see and explore her home state that she is falling more and more in love with. Ohio. Not a lot of people would think that's an adventure destination, but she wanted to see what it was all about and decided to bike nearly 800 miles along the Ohio River, and then thru hike the Buckeye Trail, which basically is the perimeter of the state of Ohio, and then bike pack all the way around Lake Erie, the perimeter of Lake Erie, just to add another part of this. And then she finished off with some rollerblading, like 3 or 4 days of rollerblading, which was awesome. And I just loved this project because on this show we talk about doing adventure where you are. You don't need to go to New Zealand, you don't need to go to the Himalayas, you don't need to go halfway around the world to have an adventure. You can have the most incredible, life-changing, eye-opening experience right in your hometown. Don't believe me? Go listen to Alistair Humphrey's episode from episode 1000. If it's true for him, it's true for anyone else listening to this show. And another really cool aspect about Alison's journey is she's an artist. So she is going to be processing this experience, which she recently completed this past year, in the form of drawings and paintings. And she's already started that process, but I'm really looking forward to what else comes out of this. And that was just a really unique aspect. So all her links are in the show notes. She just launched her new website where you can see a lot of her work. Go buy some. In TBD, if we're going to be having an adventure grant this year, I need to decide how we're going to do it, how much, and when. But if you're interested in doing an adventure this year, be on the lookout because that might be able to help make it happen. So thank you so much, Alison, for joining us. Thank you so much for doing it and coming on and telling this story. It was awesome to hear you talking about it. Let's go ahead and dive in. Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. You heard probably quite a bit about Alison in the intro that I'll record after this, just because Alison is the recipient of our adventure grant from 2023. And Alison, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
So where are you coming from today?
I'm in Cleveland today. That's where I live.
Cleveland. Yeah. We're going to be talking a lot about Ohio. But all right, so what was so intriguing about the Ohio Project when we first heard about it was how you are doing something so extensive in a part of the country that not a lot of people think of as an adventure place. Tell us about, what was this idea? Where did this come from?
I love Ohio. I was born and raised here, and I don't have a strong memory of exactly why I wanted to do it, but I do remember in September of this past year when I started my senior year of college, I have a Post-it note that I wrote down, like, I will bike along the length of the Ohio River in the summer of 2023. And I'm not sure exactly why. I can't remember like the exact memory of why I wanted to do it, but I've always had a love for Ohio. And I think I started to come up with this idea that centering around the region that I love might be a great adventure to do while I'm young. And then it started to form from there. On the same Post-it note, I think I wrote, like, I want to thru hike the Buckeye Trail, which I had learned about just a few years prior. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, why not just add on to that and then circumnavigate Lake Erie? I'm an avid listener of this podcast, and you guys had a guy on the podcast who did that Colorado Crush.
Robbie Ballinger?
Yeah, he did those. He had like a little. He did a
3.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, that kind of coincides with and it was really fun to hear about his adventure. And I was like, well, that's cool. So I think it's something that I'm interested in, to do something in the state that I love.
I was just literally thinking about Robbie this morning because I replayed an episode called the Colorado Crest. And I was like, man, that reminds me of, what was that? Oh, the Colorado Crush by Robbie. I was like, Wow, those two things sound so similar. And anyway, I was like looking Robbie up again this morning, but yeah,
Oh.
he's done some wild stuff. That was just ridiculous. But so the idea of like doing three things, because these are three very different things. And what I didn't realize is, so let me see if I got it right, because I read over everything. You bike packed basically along the Ohio River, which is 1,000 miles.
Oh, sorry. It was more like 850. I'm not sure the exact length of the river itself, but my trip ended up being around like 850 miles.
Got it. Yeah, the river is like 980 or something. So,
Yeah,
it winds a lot, but the road, definitely doesn't have to wind as much. But so, that 800 miles from like Pennsylvania all the way to Illinois. And then you come back and do the Buckeye Trail, which is 1,400 miles, basically a loop of Ohio, like seeing different things. And then 800 miles around the perimeter of Lake Erie. What made you land on Lake Erie?
It is interesting that Ohio is sandwiched in between Lake Erie and the Ohio River, which are two kind of national gems almost that I don't think about often while I'm here. But I thought that the state itself is sandwiched in this interesting region, so I might as well kind of think about those and learn about them. And then I did actually continue the trip a little bit on, like, it was a little surprise for myself. But have you heard of the Ohio to Erie Trail?
No.
It's a fully paved bike trail that goes from Cleveland to Cincinnati. It's 326 miles, and it goes just right down the state diagonally. And so I did hop on that with my bike because I landed in Cleveland after Lake Erie. So I got on my bike and I did half of it on my bicycle down to Columbus, and then a friend and I finished it off on rollerblades together. So it was fun. Yeah.
And how long was that?
The rollerblading part was 4 days, and I think it took 2 or 3 days on my bike. I think 3 days on my bicycle.
So you did like 4 big things like with this.
Yeah.
Also, you just tacked that on at the end. That is wild.
Right.
No kidding. So you love Ohio. So I'm from Florida. I feel like Ohio and Florida are often like grouped together as this wild states. They're like crazy cousins and very underappreciated adventure places.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking going into this? Were you worried? Was there any aspect of the trip that you were more concerned about than the other? Or what was kind of that general, holy cow, did I just really sign up for this?
The thru hike definitely intimidated me. I love my bike, and I did a bike packing trip the previous summer, so I knew I was pretty comfortable on my bicycle, but I had never done a thru hike before. The most experience I did like a 3-day backpacking trip once. And so I was like, I don't know why people think I don't know why I'm doing this, but it was definitely a learning curve, but that was the most intimidating part of the project for sure.
What did the people around you think about this idea? Were you telling many people? Or was it like, I'm just going to do this and not be subject to opinions?
No, I did tell people, yeah. And most people were pretty encouraging about it. I did have to because in coinciding with the grant that you guys gave me, which I'm super thankful for, and all the gear that I was sent that was so helpful, I still wanted to try to get it fully funded because it was like a 5-month endeavor, and I'm not working during these 5 months. So I just graduated from the Cleveland Institute of Art back in May, and for graduating seniors, they hand out traveling scholarships. So I applied for it with this proposal, and so I had to tell people. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have, but yeah.
Did you get that?
I did, yeah. So I got my trip fully funded.
That's awesome. No kidding. That is so cool. So what did they think about this idea as far as like from like an artistic point of view? Because that's one thing I will mention in the intro is that you also create art.
Yeah, which is like the basis for this project really is to make art about Ohio through the eyes of adventure sports, just to show how amazing the nature and the beauty and the history and their culture, if there is a culture here, to talk about through the artwork. And people were excited about it. I think it is, I got a lot of support from it. So yeah.
Did you feel like you knew Ohio before this project? Like, I kind of know what I'm going to expect, or were you like, might as well be in the middle of nowhere, somewhere I've never been? Like, what was your thoughts around like familiarity?
No, I thought I knew Ohio. I guess I didn't. I learned so much.
Oh, really? That's awesome. What was like one of the first big surprises or things you just didn't expect?
Wow, so with the Ohio River was it's such a big project chronologically is probably the best way to, so I started in Pittsburgh. It was my first time in Pittsburgh. I don't know if, have you been there before?
I have, yeah.
I didn't realize how many bridges just like compose that city. My dad and my big sister started with me, which was really fun because they're not my family's not too into adventure or like adventure sports and stuff. So it was cool for my sister to be there because otherwise they have no idea like what I'm doing. So it was a really great way to start off the trip. And I started where the Ohio River meets. There's two rivers that create the Ohio. I mean, as you know, you've been to the city. I'm trying to remember. It's like I'm not sure if I'll get the pronunciation right, but like the Allegheny and the Mono something.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. It's like 15 letters. So I see them converge right there.
Yeah,
Wow.
and they turn into the Ohio. And so I started there, and that's a lovely point to start because it's a state park because a fort was built there historically. So it was a really great state park to start in, and they've got this wonderful, huge water fountain that comes up like right at the point. And so it was a really great place to start. And that's also the starting point for the C&O, or ending point, I guess, for the C&O and Gap Trail. So there's a lot of other bikers there biking to Washington, D.C. So it was really fun to start there. And then I headed out, and the first thing that I really started noticing that I was learning about was how prevalent the Underground Railroad is to the Ohio River. It's not something, since I'm young, I'm only 22, so all my knowledge is really from institutions so far, really. So I didn't learn about how prevalent the Ohio River was in school through the Underground Railroad. So learning about just how important the Ohio River was in kind of creating that border between the North and the South, and all of the stops in Southern Ohio and just north of the Ohio River along like through Indiana and Illinois and stuff was amazing. So that was like the first thing that I really started noticing how little I knew and how much I learned about underground. I think it's called the National Underground Railroad and Freedom Center, if I'm remembering the title correctly, but it's in Cincinnati. So it was kind of early along in my stop. And I just learned so much about the Underground Railroad and how important Ohio was to it. And so that was just something that I had never really, that was great to learn.
Probably in the first day or two, you had to cross through West Virginia, which you won't think about going from Pennsylvania to Ohio. There actually is a portion of West Virginia that goes up, which is, the South. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Was it challenging to start in a city?
Yes. Yeah. Pittsburgh was awful. I'm probably never going to go back after, because all of those bridges were tough, and then it's hilly out there, so I was just huffing and puffing, and then it was just with all this exhaust around me. But after I got out of the city, I got onto the Panhandle Trail. Have you heard of it? Or
No. But is it talking about the West Virginia Panhandle?
Yeah. So the Panhandle Trail took me out of Pittsburgh, and I'm looking at the map now, like into Steubenville, Ohio. So it was really nice. I got this wonderful trail like immediately out of the city. So
when you look at this, it looks like you're just in such beautiful rural areas.
Yeah.
What was the scenery like? What were you seeing throughout this portion of the ride?
Oh, in the very beginning, it was so hilly. I remember the first day was really tough for me because it was through West Virginia. I stayed mostly on the West Virginia side the first day. I ended up my first night staying in Wheeling, West Virginia. Yeah, and it was just really hilly, and it was hot. I started on June 1st, so it was a hilly, but it was so sunny, and you're right, it was just such beautiful rural area, a lot of cows, really nice farmers, and it was beautiful.
So your dad and your sister started with you. What did they think after seeing it firsthand? Because I remember I was biking one time, and I had been biking for years, and my dad finally came and saw me, and it was in Vegas, and I literally came out of the desert into town, and he saw me like pulling up after being out there a month, and he was like, this is so crazy, man, seeing you just like come out of nowhere, haven't been out there like a vagabond, and it like really put it into perspective for him. And I'm sure the same thing was happening with your family. Did it change the way they thought about your trip to see you and be with you doing it? Were they like, oh my God, this is dangerous, or this is so cool? Like how did it change the way they viewed it?
Oh, that's a good question. My dad spent a lot of time with me this summer. he was in between jobs this summer, so he was really able to have the time to help me out, especially on the Ohio River portion was when he helped me out the most. So he spent a few days meeting up with me, and we got to have some really great experiences looking at some new nature together. And I'm sure that those moments where he saw how exciting the adventure was probably really eye-opening for him. It was for, I mean, even for me, but for the both of us to experience that together, there was especially towards, I know we're doing chronologically, so I don't want to like mix it up, but he's the one who picked me up when I finished my Ohio River bike ride, and the last day we camped at a place called Garden of the Gods in Illinois. I don't know are you familiar?
There's one in Colorado too. Funny enough.
That was there?
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's better. But, no, but the one in Illinois was great, and we camped there. Dad was amazed because in Ohio, one thing that's kind of lacking is Ohio camping can be expensive. And for what? Because, it's not any better than a lot of other camping spots. It can be like, I think state park camping here, which is what most camping is in Ohio, is like $27 to $32.
Dang,
but
that is expensive.
I know. Yeah, and there's no like BLM land or anything. But in Illinois, the camping at Garden of the Gods was only $10. So my dad was like, "This is amazing! Like this is crazy." And the Garden of the Gods recreational area is just a ton of the most amazing rock formations. I don't even know how to describe them. They're like, I think the only place I've been to that I can kind of remotely like compare the two might be like around Laramie, Wyoming, that area where there's like I don't even know how to describe them. Rocks stacked up that it's just the most amazing like rock features that you would not expect to be in the Midwest. But Dad and I just took like a 1/4 mile hike through these incredible rock formations, and the whole time we were both just like screaming and just taking photos about how amazing it was. And I think that was a really eye-opening moment for him to realize just how much fun I have on these trips and why they're so important. So,
jeez, yeah, I'm looking at it now. That's beautiful. Garden of the Gods, Illinois.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
I know.
That's
Pictures
so cool.
can't even I can't even describe how the rock form. I don't know if you're good with rocks. Like I don't know how to describe them, but
they look like stacked pancakes almost in places that kind of like undulate back and forth. It's really, really beautiful, and beautiful like tree covered hills in the background and almost like mountainous. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
After completing that river portion, what do you think you learned from that about that area?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. So initially, like the Underground Railroad was such an important and new thing for like how prevalent that was for the Ohio River to learn about. All those natural features like the Garden of the Gods around that area were incredible. I learned so much about a lot of interesting cave systems near the Ohio River. I mean, there in southern Ohio, there's a lot of caves, like in this region called Hocking Hills and that kind of area. There's quite a few really popular caves for people to go see. And I know that in Kentucky, of course, there's Mammoth Caves, which is, just on the other side of the river and stuff. And then I started learning about all the caves that are also around the Ohio River in Indiana and Illinois. And I stopped at a cave called Indiana Caverns, so creative, and you were able to take a boat through the like underground river that ran through this cave system. Like, what in Indiana? Like, I had no idea. So I just learned so much about like the geography and all this. Yeah, I'm really lucky. It was amazing. So fun to learn about all that stuff.
It's like a treasure hunt.
Yeah. And you're right about the quaint part. It felt like in the beginning of Lord of the Rings when Frodo and Sam start out their adventure and they're just walking through the Shire.
Yes.
That's like what my whole summer was. It was just like that 2 minutes, but spanned for 5 months. It was just so quaint.
And like for bike packing and bike touring, that's like exactly what you want. Small towns, rolling hills, beautiful scenery, and probably not tons of traffic on the route you went. So, maybe there was at times, but that kind of setting is what I've grown to love on the bike. Is just people are really friendly and curious about what you're doing. What was your interaction with people? Were you talking to a lot of people?
Yeah, especially because I use warm showers like religiously. I love warm showers. So I was able to talk to so many people. And I agree. That's like my favorite. I'm realizing my favorite kind of setup for a bikepacking adventure is like, I know some people really enjoy being out in the wilderness where they feel like they're the only people out there. But I've come to realize that I really like knowing there's an ice cream shop every day I can stop at and people to talk to and stuff, because that's what really makes That's where I learned the most, is having great conversations with strangers. I don't know if you like agree on your trips and stuff, but for me, that's how it works. So it was great to have good interactions with people on my Ohio River. I'm trying to think of any ones that stand out on the Ohio River portion. I have a lot that stand out from like the thru hike and stuff. Maybe when one comes to mind, I'll remember. But
Yeah. Did you have any, I don't know, any crazy stories or anything happen from the Ohio River experience? Like how was camping, trying to get camping at each of that?
Oh, it was fine. Yeah, there's tons of state parks that I was able to choose from and stuff like that. It was really great.
Did you do a lot of stealth camping where you're just like,
no, I don't do that. I'm not brave enough for that. I don't sleep well. I've tried that before in my life, but I don't sleep well ever when I do that.
no,
So.
it's you definitely run the risk. And I try to do it now and with my truck, and that's just like impossible. You can hide a bike pretty easy, but like a truck, you just can't. Somebody is gonna find it, and you get the knock with the dreaded knock on the window in the middle of the night, which sucks. But you get to the end.
Mm-hmm.
You and your dad have that awesome experience, the Garden of the Gods. Then you had to start this 1,400-mile thru hike, which was
Yes.
the one you were the most worried about. Take us through, how was your body feeling after that 800-mile bike ride? Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. One thing you might not know about me is I can get down with some cowboy boots. On the weekends, I like to kind of explore my countryside a little bit. I grew up in the country near cattle farms and ranches, so I've spent my fair share of time around cowboy boots and appreciate high-quality boots. And that's why I'm a big fan of Tecovas. Tecovas is my favorite boot brand. They're bringing a fresh perspective to heritage boot making. They carry on time-honored traditions and quality that you find in a great pair of cowboy boots, but they've innovated on comfort, style, and service. Their Western boots for men and women are handmade from the most premium leathers and over 200 time-honored individual steps, and their service is unmatched. If you go into the store, you're greeted like family, offered a boot shine and a drink, and you can get custom fitted for a new pair of boots right there. You can find all their store locations at tecovas.com. And if you can't make it into the store, Tecovas delivers the most premium quality and most comfortable Western goods right to your door. Visit tecovas.com. That's TECOVAS.com and point your toes west. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
No, it was good. I don't recall feeling very exhausted. I'm a dilly-dallyer, so I definitely took a lot of off days. It took me 20 days to do 850 miles, which is pretty slow, just because I take a ton of off days. So I really didn't push myself too hard. I like to sightsee and everything. So yeah, it wasn't too hard to adjust. But it was tough to figure out how to pack my backpack. Especially, I took a few couple mile hikes with my parents and had to throw out a ton of stuff and figure out how to pack my backpack. But I think it took me and then I had to start a little bit later because this was during summer when there was a lot of those Canadian wildfires, and the smoke was causing really bad air quality in Ohio. So I delayed my trip a few days just because they were recommending that people don't go outside, which is very unfortunate. Yeah, but so I delayed my trip and I started. When did I start? I wrote down all of my facts. Oh yeah, I started on June 30th. So about 10 days after I finished the bike trip. So I gave myself some time to rest and everything. I started in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Yeah. Oh, Dave Chappelle lives there. If you ever want to find him, I don't know where, but
Yellow Springs, is that like a small town or big town? Or?
Yeah, it's tiny. It's a little hippie oasis. People go there for day trips because it's a hippie town. I don't even know where to begin with it. There's a ton of interesting murals and literal hippies. Everyone there it's so fun, and it was a great place to start. I started at the Buckeye Trail kind of trailhead. There starts at this historical a train stop. So it was fun. I started at a little historical train station. My dad took a picture, and then I walked through this neighborhood to start my Ohio Trail through hike. And it was really quaint, as you said. I think that's the best way to describe the whole summer, because I was just walking by these wonderful, small, colorful houses with all these signs that say peace, love, stuff like that. And yeah, it was a great way to start.
Are there lots of people doing the Buckeye Trail in the summer? Are you alone in the sense of through hiking, or do you see a lot of others? What was that experience like as compared to what you just did?
Oh yeah, it was interesting. I only met one other through hiker the whole time. I met one guy going the opposite direction as me, and he was from Akron, Ohio. We didn't talk for too long because we were going separate ways, but I saw him day 18, and then I never saw him again. That was my only other through hiker buddy out there. But he was like, oh, I was doing the CDT, but snow made me turn around, and I still wanted to do through hike, so I guess I'll just do this instead. And I was like, oh, great. His name was Jeff. I hope he's doing well. He was cool. But yeah, we took a selfie, and then I never saw him again. And that was my only other through hiker person I met. So that's that was very different from probably a lot of other through hiking experiences that most people have. And that did make me think, like, next time I do through hike, I wouldn't mind doing one where I see other through hikers, because the Buckeye Trail, it's been around. It started in 59, I believe, 1959. The history of it's really interesting if you want to hear.
Yeah, tell me.
I wrote down some facts so I can represent factually my Ohio to impress everyone. But yeah, so the Buckeye Trail, it started in 59, and I thought I pulled this quote from their website because I thought it was really cool. The founder built it with hopes that the trail would serve as a encouragement for young people to slow down and learn about their native land, which is exactly what I did.
That literally was for you.
No, and hopefully people who do it, young people who continue it. But sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh yeah, so it started in 59 and it was completed in 1980, but a lot of people still, especially from Ohio, still don't know about it. I mean, I only found out about it like 2 years ago, since it's not popular, even though there's a lot of trail towns and stuff, you just don't see through in Ohio, even though we've got this incredible loop of a hike around the whole state. So most of the time when I was hiking out there, I was running into a lot of people because you're really not in wilderness like most of the time on the through hike. But I was running into a lot of people most of the time, but most people didn't know what I was doing. So a lot of people thought I was training for something. They were asking me if I was training for the Appalachian Trail and stuff. And I was like, no, I'm currently
I'm training for my bike around Lake Erie, maybe.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm actively doing my through hike. But it was fun. So then I got to tell people about the through hike, and I met one lady who we exchanged numbers, and she's very serious about wanting to do her own through hike of the Buckeye Trail next year, which is really exciting. So it was great. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't mind doing a through hike where I see other people that are also doing the same thing as me, because it could feel kind of not lonely, but just that there was like a lack of a support system that is probably more prominent on other trails. So
that I hear that about the AT a lot. You get a lot of encouragement from other people, and there's just you get to basically share the same gripes and complaints and just common things to commiserate about and get through it together with. So a lot of relatability. Yeah. So this was I'm sure surprisingly isolating. How did you feel camping each night? I guess along the trail, probably not in a campground most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely a challenge. I had a challenge I definitely struggled a lot during the through hike for sure. I mean, physically, like, it was so hard, so much harder than bike packing. I mean, I don't know, because you're a bike packer and a hiker, right?
Yeah, I'll backpack. Backpacking's way harder, harder on the joints and the weight. Like, I understand why people like drill holes into their toothbrush to save weight. You know what I mean? On a bike, you can I'm carrying the whole jar of peanut butter and like metal silverware. Like, you don't care. Like, you can carry anything, and you get to just cruise down the hill. You know what I mean? With backpacking, you're almost dread a downhill because it's like, it's going to hurt so bad. So it was a lot harder, but also it was like twice as long as what you just did. So it's like double hard.
Yeah, I had a hard time. And so since this requires explanation, I didn't like write this down for for you to explain in the beginning of the episode. But so I started off the thru hike. The first day was tough as usual. I thought I could do it in my Chacos. That was such a mistake. I don't know what I was doing. I got such bad blisters, and it was so tough. The first day I only did like 11 miles. I have a friend who lives, she graduated from Wright State, which is outside of Dayton. So it was only like, I think my first day was like 11 or 13 miles or something from Yellow Springs to my friend's little house on Wright State. And I was like dragging my feet the last half miles. It was on like a college campus. All these kids my age were like laughing at me outside of their, honking at me and stuff. And I was like, oh, if I can do this. But, the first day was tough, and I honestly felt like, I don't know your experiences, but my feet they always hurt the entire time. Like they hurt the whole time. I don't know. But it was tough. But it was so beautiful. Like the trails, and especially in the beginning where I started, because I started in Yellow Springs, and then I started making my way up north on the loop. And so I went through Dayton, and then I started going up along that'd be Western Ohio, which is the flat side. So the kind of what you think of Ohio, the scenery, very flat, mostly farmland and stuff. But I enjoyed it because it gave me a chance to run into so many people and chat with them. And I was following along canals most of the time, so I was learning a lot about the rivers in that area. And then I got up north. I hit Toledo, started following the trail eastward along northern Ohio. And that was cool because I was along a route most of the time. The Ohio Trail, the Buckeye Trail, about half of it is on roads, and a lot of the other half that's not on roads is along already designated paved bike paths. So this portion up in northern Ohio, when I was following along paved bike paths, it was usually part of the northern tier route for bicyclists. So I was running into cyclists, and that was really fun. But then when I got up into northern Ohio, I started having some trouble. I had this really interesting day. It was really fun. Very funny day, but I was camping on the side of this like bike trail that's up in northern Ohio that kind of coincides with the Buckeye Trail. I was not too far outside of a city called Fremont, Ohio, and it was big for the area because it's got like a movie theater there. So, and the Barbie movie just came out, so I was like, oh my god, I'm going to walk over. It's gonna be like a nice day. I'm gonna only go like 11 miles, and I'm gonna see the Barbie movie, and then I think I'll like stay in a hotel for the night, just like have a nice day. And it was really fun because that morning, when I was packing up, there was this 6-year-old girl. She was so cute. She was in this little pink dress, and she had a Barbie with her, and she was like, hi, my name's Charlie, I'm 6. And I was like, oh, hi. And she was like, are you a kid or an adult? And I was like, I don't know. Good question. But so then I had my whole day to think about that. I was like, wow, that was
threw you into an existential crisis.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
I'm sure the Barbie movie didn't help that.
No, literally, I know. I was sitting there like, that song, what was I made for? Like, what? And then so I saw that, and it was so fun. I like listened to the soundtrack on my way to this hotel, and then like I checked in, and like 5 minutes after I check in, the lady at the front desk, she knocks on my door, and she's like, did you notice someone following you today? And I was like, no, but I'll be honest, I wasn't like paying attention. Like I had my headphones in for most of the time. And she was like, okay, because this guy came in like right after you checked in and said he had some food for you and like a place to stay. And then I told him that you checked in with your dad. So she like was very nicely like lying for me. Mm-hmm. And she was like, so he left. But then after he left, a couple came in and said that they saw him when they were leaving town. They saw you walking from the movie theater, and they saw him behind you. And then when they came back into town, like an hour later, they saw him still following you into your hotel. So they wanted to check to see if you got in safe and everything. And she was like, so I would suggest you like don't leave the hotel tonight. And I was like, cool, like this is great. And then after that, it ended up being fine. But after that situation, I started not sleeping very well.
Any clue what that was or who that was?
No. So he could have been a nice guy. I was like, but I don't know, because I walked. You
weren't
for
planning to meet like your dad there. And
no.
Okay.
Because I was like, because that walk from the hotel was like an hour. It was like 3 miles or so. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I had no idea. So like I started not sleeping very well after that. which is fun because it ended up being like fine or whatever. But so I wasn't sleeping very well, and then that started to like affect the through hike because I really didn't sleep until it started getting light out. Honestly, like I wouldn't confidently fall asleep until like 4:30 or 5 when like the birds came out, and then I wouldn't start my hike until like noon, and so I wasn't sleeping very well, and it was affecting the hike. Yeah, I was like just having little panic attacks, I guess, throughout the day, just probably because I wasn't sleeping very well and stuff like that. But the hike was still very fun even throughout that. I was just getting like progressively like more sleep deprived or whatever. And but it was nice because after that portion I got into like northeastern Ohio, which is where I'm currently at and where I went to school and stuff. So I have a lot of friends over here that I got to see, and they would join me for portions of the hike and stuff. But then as I continued down south, it was getting more remote, and I still was not knowing how to really like cope with these little panic attacks I was having and stuff like that. And so I was starting to struggle, even though it was still such an amazing hike, and like northeastern Ohio is beautiful. It's really hilly and it's full of like beautiful waterfalls, and Cuyahoga Valley National Park is up here. So I got to walk through that. It's a beautiful national park. So it was still a beautiful hike. Went through Akron and saw some friends and stuff, but I was still struggling with my sleep and stuff. I just wasn't sleeping well.
And it was because this experience just was frightening enough, and just the reality of like, wow, someone could really follow me, or just
how easy it was.
How easy it was to just, you don't want to like live your life that way, but when it happens and someone does say, hey, someone's following you, it can really freak you out.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, I think I'm being pretty dramatic about, like I was like, this, it was fine. But yeah, I just wasn't, I was just unable to sleep well in my tent. So, and so my dad, I talked to my parents like almost every day throughout the trip, and then just to check in and stuff. And I was like, yeah, Dad, I'm not sleeping and I'm having trouble hiking. I'm not getting out of my tent till like noon to hike and stuff. And he was like, well, I know you like your bike. Have you considered, since you're already on roads half the time, like, do you want to try a portion on your bicycle and see if that helps you? And I was like, I think so. So my dad met up with me, and we switched out my backpack for my bike in Lake Hope State Park, which is not too far off the trail. It's in Southern Ohio, and it's a beautiful, Southern Ohio is like my favorite part of the state. It's so beautiful. It's just full of really gorgeous, like it's like the Appalachian foothill area. Yeah. So it's pretty rural, full of gorgeous like caves and waterfalls. And we met up just off the trail at Lake Hope State Park, and he let me ride my bike for a week. So I can't say I completely thru hiked the Buckeye Trail, since I did a portion of it. I did about 300 miles on my bicycle, and I made it to Cincinnati on my bike, and then I felt way better. My bike helped me out a lot, and so I was able to finish the hike on my feet, and wow. I felt much better after that. But the bike helped me clear my head, and it was good.
Well, I'm glad that happened. Were people often, just people you met, concerned for your safety?
Yeah, probably.
Did anyone ever tell you? Because I mean, even me in college, I had people like, you're out here by yourself? And, like older couples would want to just almost like take you under their wing. I don't know, did stuff like that happen?
Yeah. Did you get the question all the time? Like, are you carrying a gun? Do you have your concealed carry?
Gosh. Well, yeah. One time when I was in the Canadian border coming from Alaska, the Border Patrol person was like, do you have a gun? And we're going into Canada, so I'm thinking like, okay, they got to check because they wouldn't want it to cross countries. And this was in a very remote part of Alaska, and they said, I was like, no gun. And they're like, okay, do you have a knife? And I said, no. And they're like, well, okay, do you have bear spray? And I was like, no.
No.
They said, you need something because there's grizzlies everywhere. He goes, I was going to let you take whatever you had in. I need you to go he goes, there's a general store right up the road. Go buy something. And so me and my buddy who were in college, we're broke as can be. Like, we don't have any money. I think we had like $300 for the whole trip, and it's supposed to last, 2 months. And we bought a can of wasp spray that was on sale.
Oh, my God.
And it was like eco-friendly wasp spray. It was like $3. And it was probably like vinegar in a can. And literally did nothing because we had to spray a dog one day that was chasing us. and I thought he was going to
Wow.
bite us, and the dog didn't even bother the dog. And the dog ended up being really friendly. I like literally sprayed him in the eyes, and then the dog came over to hit me and like wanted me to pet him. So I was like, wow. It didn't even stop a dog, much less a grizzly bear. So anyway, I did get that question a lot, so I'm sure you did too.
All the time. I'm like, no, I'm not carrying a gun. That sounds awful to me. I don't know. But I think people were concerned for my safety, especially because I had done a previous bike packing trip the summer before in 2022. I had a summer job out in Colorado, and I tried to bike there. People had no faith in me, and they had no reason to, because I don't know why I thought I could do that. But I made it to Lawrence, Kansas, outside of Kansas City. Like 1,004 miles or so from Cleveland. And that trip, I was like, everyone was always concerned for my safety. I was getting the gun question a lot. And then people I knew, I didn't carry anything. Yeah, I didn't carry, I think I had a pocket knife for camping and stuff, but I usually don't carry like pepper spray or anything, just because I don't usually feel the need to. I mean, everyone's so kind to me and stuff. And I don't like the idea of overreacting to, I don't know how to word this, but like it might be very ignorant. Ignorant is bliss, though. But to just look hopefully about how many kind people there are, instead of really hyperfixate on what could go wrong, because otherwise I think these adventures would be too scary to do, especially by myself. But I love doing them by myself so much, so I usually don't carry anything with me, and so I think that does make people really nervous about it. But I've had good experiences so far. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't usually carry anything. I did start carrying bear spray.
Nice.
And that's about as much as I'll I mean, I have a knife for like what I like to use for cooking and cutting stuff, but the bear spray is nice because it's like, it's not fatal. Yeah, like even like or shoot myself on accident, honestly. Like that's probably a biggest problem. And also the weight, but two, bear spray's cheap. I'm a big fan of bear spray. No, I've never had anything either, but I'm also, I don't know, it's like I'm a very big guy. And I'm scared half to death when I do trips. I'm like terrified when I'm out there alone and I hear something and I'm like, oh my God, I'll never sleep. And so it takes a lot of guts. Takes a lot of guts to go do that.
Yeah, for anyone who does it by themselves. I know people bring up the whole, you're 5'2", 22-year-old girl, but I think it's probably scary for anyone doing it by yourself, no matter what, what your stature, what your age, what your, who you are. It's probably scary for anyone doing it by themselves.
So. I think so. It takes a lot of guts. I mean, let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. A lot of the adventures we have on this show requires international travel and oftentimes a new language. Although there's plenty of adventure in just winging it, it really helps and can enrichen the adventure if you go prepared, learning some of the language before you go. And that's why I'm excited to be partnering with Babbel. And so if you're looking for a science-backed language learning app that actually works and works fast, that you don't want to pay hundreds of dollars for, a private tutor, or learning a language that actually is in a way that's not truly the way it's spoken, then you need to try Babbel. Babbel's convenient courses have helped me learn real-life conversational skills in different languages, so it's easy to learn how to order food, ask for directions, speak to someone at a store, without having to consult an app which you might not have service for while you're out on an adventure. So with over 10 million subscriptions and 150 scientists that have helped create this app, here's a special limited-time deal for our listeners. Right now, get 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/ASP. Get 55% off at babbel.com/ASP. Spelled BABBEL.com/ASP for Adventure Sports Podcasts. Rules and restrictions may apply. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. It gets easier as you get more skilled and better at it until something like that happens. I've definitely had instances where someone kind of freaked me out with just running into them down the road, or other, hitchhikers and stuff, people that might be dealing with other things, and maybe not the best intentions. I've had those instances, and that'll definitely be unsettling for a little while. But the longer you go, and those instances are few and far between. Like you said, 99% of the people are just incredible. Probably like 99.9% is more accurate. And for the people that aren't incredible, a lot of times they're just not super nice. It's not even like they're bad. You know what I mean? They're just kind of neutral.
They're having a bad day. Yeah. Because like even in that instance, I still thought about like how lucky I was that woman at the front desk was like, she lied for me in a really good way, and that couple who were observant enough to notice that this guy was following me for like an hour were like actively pulled over and went into the hotel and said, "Hey, is this girl, did she check in all right?" Like there's so many people that were always out there to help me out. So I always feel well protected, just between Mother Nature and kindness of strangers. So
that's awesome. So the Buckeye Trail, you get done with that, and then you got this other huge challenge, which is going around Lake Erie. How were you feeling at this point? You were like, "Oh my gosh, am I really about to do this too?" Or were you like excited about this part of it?
I was excited for the Lake Erie trip, especially after how tough it was. My thru hike, I was like, oh, I love my bike. Like my bike is the perfect way to travel and everything. And so I was excited for the Lake Erie trip, but it was also like, I really hope I can actually finish this because of how unexpectedly tough the thru hike was for me. I was like, am I overestimating myself again with this? But it was so much fun because the like, how adventures a lot of times they're full of highs and lows, but the Lake Erie was literally just like no lows. It was the best adventure ever. Like I don't know if you're ever gonna try to do a bike trip around Lake Erie, but I feel like I'm gonna recommend it to everyone now. It was so much fun.
What was so different about this? Half of the trip is in the US, half is in Canada.
Yeah, this was my first time in Canada, so that was really exciting. I crossed, I started in Cleveland, and my first day was just so fun. This was when did I start? I started on September 20th. And so the weather was just perfect in that window because it was, late September, early October. I didn't get rained on once. It was like 65 out. It was so perfect, like the perfect window to begin. And that was nice. That was different from like the thru hike as well, because during the Buckeye Trail, I was hiking in like the heat of the summer, and there were quite a few, like not only hot days, but there were some tornado warnings and like some bad storms and stuff. But the Lake Erie trip was just perfect weather. And the first day was super fun because I stayed at a warm shower host in Conneaut, Ohio. And I stayed there the same time as another kid who was biking across America on the Northern Tier route. He was from Germany. And it was fun to run into, because I said before, like on the thru hike, I didn't get to run into other thru hikers and talk about, the adventure with anybody really. But it was so fun to run into another long distance cyclist, and we got to exchange stories and stuff like that. And that was a really great way to like kick off the trip. And then going through Pennsylvania was wonderful. And then going through New York. Have you spent much time in New York? Because it was my first time in New York. So. Oh,
like the state, or
yeah.
I've biked through there a couple times.
Yeah, wasn't it nice to bike through?
Oh, it's gorgeous. I didn't do probably some of the portions you did looking at the map, but it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it was full of grape like vineyards, and I had no idea. And they smelled amazing. Like when I was biking, every time I breathed in real heavy, it just smelled like grapes. It was so nice. It was so quaint. Perfect word for it. And I just saw the view of the river of the lake the entire time, and it was wonderful. And then and I stayed for 3 nights in Buffalo. I really liked Buffalo. I don't know if Buffalo has a bad rep as a city, but
cold, I know that's about like the only bad thing I've really heard. It's cold.
It had not when I was there, but it had beautiful architecture. I took a tour of a Frank Lloyd Wright home. Are you familiar?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, because I learned about him in school since I went to art school. So I was like, no way, there's a home here. It was called the Martin House, and I took like a 2-hour tour, and it was so fun too because it was like a Tuesday at like 2 p.m. So I was the youngest person there. Like it was just a bunch of retired people. And I thought it was like, I was taking notes. They were like, did you get everything? Do you have questions? Because I'm sure they thought it was so funny that I was there. But I took a tour of this Frank Lloyd Wright house in Buffalo. Buffalo has a hostel. It was my first time staying at a hostel. And it was really fun because I thought it was going to be like what I see in the movies where it's just like a bunch of young European people that I was going to hang out with. But it was like old people, like retired people who were traveling. Like there was some sort of concert in Buffalo this summer from like this older guy. So a bunch of older people like there to see some rock concert. And I got to talk to like a bunch of Australians traveling and Canadians and Germans and stuff. And it was, so I stayed in Buffalo for 3 nights just because I really liked it there. And the thing about the Lake Erie trip is like, it was really easy to navigate by bike because I like, at least on the Ohio, on the US side, I was mostly following this like scenic route for bikes. So I was just following signs like with a bicycle on it, and it was like super easy. And the same thing through Buffalo. Like I was kind of nervous about going through a big city, but I just kept seeing these signs with bikes on them for like some sort of route through the city. So I was just following these signs and it was really easy. No one honked at me or anything. Like it was a great city to bike through. And then to get out of Buffalo, I was on a really nice bike path that was following the lake up to Niagara Falls. It was just like it had a huge bike path on the side of this scenic highway. It was just it was no stress involved in like navigating by bike around Lake Erie. And I crossed into Canada on over Niagara Falls. So I got to roll up on my bike to Niagara Falls, and that was really exciting to hear the water like roaring, and I pull up and I'm like, wow, I biked all the way here.
It sounds like that portion of the trip was really, really special.
Yes. Yeah. Special is a great word for it. Yeah. So I got to cross into Canada for my first time, and it was exciting because there was a lot of like little differences between the countries that were fun to notice. Just, the accents and like the northern accents, the way people say their O's, and the money is different, and the milk in the bags, and like even I took so many pictures of like the postal service cars because like they're so cute, like they're red, like that's so cool. So it was fun to be there.
Oh, so many little things like that add up to be such a wonderful experience. And I saw a lot of skylines that you took pictures of cities. Like, I'm not always excited to go through a city, but sometimes it's beautiful in its own way. Yeah. Being an artist and being, graduating from a school of arts, I'm sure you were looking at this too from that point of view a lot. Or what were you doing to kind of like make sure you captured that side of things too?
Yeah. Artistically, my work, a lot of times I recreate these moments through my art that I can't capture on photograph, because I don't want to capture everything as I'm actively going on an adventure through my phone. I'm not sure if you have like opinions on that, but I don't want to record myself the whole time. I don't want to take pictures the whole time, but I still want to convey these beautiful moments of what an adventure can bring to people, and especially in this region that people often underestimate. So I was just trying to make sure that I keep a good record, either a memory of, or I journal a lot about moments that are special that I can't, or that I choose not to capture on picture. So I was just trying to be very intentional and think about genuine moments that I was able to, that I'm going to and try and actively right now, like recreating through art. So artistically, I was just very observant, and like currently I'm working on a piece of myself during my thru hike, especially when it was really hot out. I was taking naps during the middle of the day just to get out of the heat, between like noon and 2. And there was this one really nice moment in, was it Western Ohio, when I kind of wandered off the trail into the woods to take a nap, and I woke up and there was just like a little red cardinal sitting on my leg, and which is the state bird. So I thought it was really cute. And so just moments like, yeah, I had my legs propped up, and then I just like woke up and there was this little red cardinal like sitting there.
That's awesome.
I know, isn't that cute? So just like little moments like that, I remember, and I write down, like, oh, I was wearing this, I had my hat over my head, and I was under these trees, and then that way I can come back to my studio and recreate these quaint little moments that I can, exhibit, so people can see how much joy you can get out of an adventure, especially in my home region that I'm really proud of. So
Do you have further plans for what you want to do with your art?
yeah, especially for this trip. So right now I'm making my work. I have a full-time job from 4 to midnight, but when I'm not there, I'm trying to work on my art. So during the day, I'm an artist and I'm making art about this trip. And there's so much art to make from this trip, just from little moments like that to just recreating the beautiful nature that I got to see through the Ohio region that people probably don't always expect, especially if they're not from this area. I've got 2 places that I'm going to be showing my work this year. There's Akron Coffee Roasters in Akron, Ohio for 2 months from April 1st to May 31st. My work will be up in there. And there's going to be, I'll be posting like details and stuff when the date comes closer, but there'll be like an opening reception and stuff for that. And then an exhibition space called Waterloo Arts, which is here in Cleveland. I'll have my work up from June 7th to July 21st. And there'll be like an artist talk and opening show for that as well.
That's awesome.
So I'm excited. Yeah. And I'm trying to pull up my website so that I can like sell prints and stuff like that. So that's like the plans that I'm making for my artwork.
Is there anything for sale from this trip now?
Not yet. I'm finishing up 2 pieces and I'm going to put them up. I don't know, maybe they'll be ready when the episode comes out. I'm not sure when the episode will be out, but yeah, I'll be selling Ohio work. And yeah, I'm excited.
I want to buy a piece.
Nice, thanks.
Well, take us through some of your biggest learnings. It sounds like the Underground Railroad was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
But what would you say was maybe something else, like a big theme you walked away with this experience? I know you were trying to kind of not necessarily put Ohio on the map, but like experience it for yourself. What is this place I call home?
Yeah.
What did you feel like you walked away understanding?
Ooh, I've been ready for this question. I've got like 3 pages of stuff written down. I won't talk about all of it because there was just so much I learned. Like, oh my God, I really thought I knew the state I was from, but like, I guess I didn't. So much history. The one other really amazing thing I learned about that really like blew my mind about how I understand my home region is the Black Swamp. Have you heard of it?
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, so the Black Swamp, I started hearing about it on my Buckeye Trail through hike because as I was getting up to the north, I'm so bad with I'm like thinking of a compass in my head every time I start talking, but it's like the northwestern portion of the state, like that around the Toledo area and stuff. As I was getting closer to there, well, the mosquitoes got so much worse, and I was like, what is happening? And then I started reading plaques and talking to people. I met a guy near Bowling Green, Ohio, who was like a history teacher there. So he had like a lot of local history, and everyone's just started telling me about this thing called the Black Swamp. And I was like, what is this? And the Black Swamp was historically, it was located in the corner of Ohio, in that area near Toledo and Bowling Green. And it stretched as far as like Fort Wayne, Indiana. It was about 120 miles long historically. I think, if I remember correctly, it was called the Black Swamp either because of how dark the soil was, or it was because the forest was just so thick and dark. It was like, I don't know, I was reading online, I caught this quote from it. It said it's like an impenetrable forest of giant oak, sycamore, hickory, walnut, ash, elm. And it was full of like snakes, wolves, wildcats, biting flies. And it's unfortunately, so it's like the last corner of Ohio that had been settled. It's been drained. So there's only like a very small portion of it it's called I think it's called the Maggie Marsh Wildlife Area, if I'm remembering correctly. That's like the only like area that still has any swamp left.
Wow.
But to realize that Ohio had a 120-mile long and like 40-mile wide swamp within the state just really completely transformed my concept of how the Ohio that I know and love now is very different from how natural Ohio was even just like 200 years ago. And so learning about the swamp, just imagining that there was a swamp in this region, that was, and then and as I continued like reading about how like 95% of the state was once covered in forest. Now it's around like, I think 30%. That's something that I kind of thought about, like if I sit and look at the Cleveland skyline, I'm like, oh, this was once trees. But now to like understand how different this area looked really even just 100, 200 years ago, as I was hiking through or even biking through, it just was, it blew my mind to imagine how different it once was. But I decided, because it can get kind of sad. I'm sure you think about that with your like home state and stuff like that, just how much it's changed. But and it can be very sad to think about it. I was like, man, this place once had like black bears and wildcats and stuff. You don't see those. And I did see a bobcat though in Ohio. That was crazy on my trip. But like most of the time, you don't see stuff like that. And I've never, like, I was like, man, I've never seen a massive flock of birds before, besides geese, these flying. I've never, and how they were once there. But I decided, like, it can become very sad to think so deeply about how much it's changing for a negative way. But then I realized that there's still that 30% forest that's still here that needs appreciation, instead of dwelling on the 95% that's not, that was once but not there anymore. And so just to remember to appreciate presently the trees that are still there, because they're still here, was really important takeaway for me this summer.
I was recently shared a quote that, Aldo Leopold, the famous conservationist, he said, talking about what you were just saying, kind of downfall of learning about nature and studying this world is realizing just how wounded it is from our doing, humans, and it's really depressing. When you think about what things used to be there, and that Great Black Swamp was enormous. It took like the top 20% of the state. It was huge.
Yeah.
And swamps, being in a swampy area, I love swamps. They are so full of life and so hard to get into, but when you are, it's just like you're in this cathedral that never ends. It's amazing. And it can be very depressing to think about how quickly all of it has disappeared. But I think what you're doing is the right way to approach it. Enjoy what we do have left and know that nature does return given enough time. And as we learn as humans, I'm very hopeful that we will at some point get efficient enough and wise enough and strategic enough to return a lot of these places back to what they were supposed to be. And within another 100 to 200 years, a lot of these things can be, you can't replicate thousands of years of a landscape, but you can get it back to a pretty natural state fairly quickly. Which is cool. And I think the pandemic showed us that, like, deer were walking around like downtown, bears were returning to places they hadn't been in years, just from like a couple months of people not being as busy. And it happens really quickly. Keep doing what you're doing. Exploring and seeing helps you appreciate and love these places.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm hopeful too. That's a good way to put it, because I especially being 22 years old, and I'm so most of my peers are around my age, and they it makes me hopeful to see that myself and most of my friends and everyone that I'm around and stuff, even though that's a very small bubble, but we all have a desire to protect this world. Like we don't want it to burn while we're still on it. So and so just through my travels and between school and coworkers and stuff, just knowing that there are a lot of young people out there who do have a passion to protect what we have. I mean, my roommate, his goal is to be zero waste households, and it's a lot of my other friends are like that. So I have hope. I try to. You're right, because it can get depressing just to think about the doom, but there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of people who want to make a really big change. So
absolutely, there's a lot of people that feel the way we do and want to do something about it. Was there anything else you wanted to share from this Ohio project experience?
Oh, so much. There's so much I could talk about. I love my state. There's so many cool things I learned about, but I don't know, like a good ending story. Yeah, there's just so many cool things I could talk about forever, but that'll be what my art is for. So
Oh, well, I'm excited. We're going to link where we can to like websites and where to find you and where to see your art, because I think that's such a unique and cool part of this, is being able to share it in that way, in a way that's lasting, in a way that takes time to create and time to process. And I'm excited to get some of it. Thanks for advocating for your state. One of the big things about this show is that adventure's everywhere. It's not just, New Zealand or halfway around the world. It's literally in your own backyard.
Yeah.
Or in your own state.
Yeah, I'm very lucky I was able to do this. I'm really glad. And so
Do you feel like you love Ohio more now?
I sure do. Yeah, no, now I'm like a passionate, like, you know how people say, like, when they go abroad, they suddenly become like a patriot, like, you know,
Yes.
that's how I feel about Ohio. Like, you know, at first I was always like, I know that there's jokes about it, but now the moment someone talks about Ohio, I'm like, did you know that Ohio actually, you know, because I have all this terrible info now that
Oh,
I can.
you just got basically a PhD in Ohio.
Right. Yeah, I met a kid this summer who was around my age. He was a year older than me, and he was only 23, and he's very well traveled, and he was like, yeah, I'm not really sure what to do now. Like, I've been everywhere. And I was like, there's no way. Like, you can just choose literally, like that guy you were saying, what, Alistair, is that his name? He
Alistair
chose like
Humphreys, yeah.
a literal square of, like, I was like, there's no way you can say that. Like, that's just sad. Like, what are you talking about? I could bike around Lake Erie for the rest of my life, and I think I would, you know, learn something new every single day. Like,
It
it's
is
so
interesting. It took, I didn't get to your mindset until almost now. I'm 10 years older than you. And
cool.
it took probably till 30 till I was like, it's all around me. You know, I don't have to
Yeah.
go somewhere. And you're experiencing it now. So I'm curious where you'll be at 30, how it'll shift. But it's, yeah, I think every place needs somebody like this to advocate for it, to love it like this way, and to get others excited about where they are too. Because,
Yeah.
you know, that's what it takes to protect it. So, well,
Yeah, exactly.
Alison, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you. I can't thank you enough for this and for the grant. Like, that was it was really encouraging to get the grant and get the support and everything. So I can't thank you guys enough for it.
You know, you did the hard part.
Yeah.
I just sent like a Venmo.
That's funny.
So
Well,
you had to do the 3,000 miles of work.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And for the technical difficulties a few times there.
Totally good.
Yeah, bye
All right.
so much.
All right, see ya. First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.